We're back. This is Arts Alive. I'm Linda Philippi, and my next guest is Dick Mason, and he is here from KYLC Radio 1260 for Yamhill County. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Linda.
Yeah. When I spoke with you on the phone, I said, I can tell this guy's in radio because you have that radio voice.
Well, yeah, and that's part of it, because the truth is people can't see you, so they have to, just get every information they can from your voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you always been in radio?
Long time. Mm-hmm. Most of my life, really. I started at, when I was at Lewis and Clark College, years ago back in the late 60s. I started fooling around with the campus radio station and just fell in love with it. And then I transferred over to Portland Community College and went there. And they had classes in radio broadcasting. And so I studied with a gentleman named Keith Allen, who is kind of legendary in Oregon because he was very influential and really cared about radio, but he also cared a lot about his students. And learned a lot from him, and then was interrupted. I got drafted, so I spent 2 years in the Army.
Oh my goodness, okay.
And then after I got out of the Army, I moved to California, and then that's where I started my career. And so I've worked for 38 years at different stations in California.
Were you in Southern California, the Bay Area? Where were you?
Mostly northern and central. I started in I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I started in San Luis, and then I worked in Salinas and
Oh my goodness.
Fresno, Sacramento, back to San Luis Obispo. I owned a station for 10 years there, and then I worked in the Bay Area for a while, and then for the last 7 years, I've been at a station in Paso Robles, California, which is in San Luis Obispo County. It's very similar to KYLC. It's a standalone AM station in a smaller community, but the station's doing real well.
So how did you wind up here?
Well, I was looking around for a opportunity like this, a standalone AM station in a nice community, and looked at quite a number. This appealed to me, one, because it's the only radio station in Yamhill County, the only commercial radio station, and also it's near where I grew up. I grew up in Beaverton, not that far away.
Okay.
And I had family that was here in McMinnville, and so I was familiar with McMinnville, and I also thought it was really beautiful.
McMinnville is the center of the known universe. So I'm glad you're here. Back,
Thank you.
I guess.
Thanks.
Back here. I'm sure that when you got here, you probably thought, holy cow, McMinnville's changed a lot in 38 years.
It's changed a little bit, but it still looks good. Beaverton has changed so much that I get lost. I don't even really know my way around. And when I was in high school there, I worked for a grocery store delivering groceries, so I thought I really knew the area, but it's just changed exponentially. And so I like the small town atmosphere of McMinnville.
And why did you want a standalone AM station in particular? What about that appeals to you?
Well, I'm really familiar with the model of what makes this work. And it's
okay.
interesting because I had a meeting today with communications instructor Michael Huntsberger at Linfield, and just talking about the number of stations. He's familiar with one in Olympia, but I worked at one in Paso Robles. I had a friend that had one in Santa Clarita, but they're just an icon in the community, very involved in the community, and it's, to me, it's kind of the way radio used to be, and it's very vibrant, but I like it.
It's kind of interesting. My mother's from Arkansas. My grandparents lived in a small town, Harrison, Arkansas. And I remember going to visit in the summertime and listening to the local radio station. And, they would be talking about eggs and chickens and feed and play a little music, and then very homespun. And I grew up in the Bay Area, so I didn't have any kind of an experience of that at all. We had everybody listened to KFRC, and KYA back then, and those were the big stations for, I guess, teenagers or whatever. But going to a real small town and hearing that, and I thought at the time, wow, how cool it would be to be on the radio. So, I mean, you kind of have my dream job, I guess.
Yes. Well, it is a lot of fun. Small market radio is pretty interesting. And, and yet KFRC, I mean, what a legendary station that was.
Remember Dr. Donald D. Rose?
Yes, very much, yeah. Now, and he ended up having a smaller station over around Walnut Creek.
Okay,
and so got real involved in just that section of the valley. So, yeah, it's a different aspect, but it's it's fun because the station can be very involved in the community.
Well, for example, I know that the Master Gardeners have a show
That's
because
correct.
a friend of mine, Ray Van Blaricum, is one of your, I guess, early Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. They have the show from 8 to 9, he and a partner.
Right.
So-
Ray and Kyle, they're both
Right.
Yamhill County Master Gardeners. And that's something that is really unique to Yamhill County because you could watch a national gardening show, but they talk about the local climate and phenomenon here. And Kyle lives in Amity and Ray lives in McMinnville. And they're both very knowledgeable, and they are very clued in on what the Oregon State Extension University is doing. Here they offer a lot of classes in gardening and that. So it's a way to really localize, and that's the kind of programming that we'll be doing more of.
So do you have some ideas about the direction that you'd like to take the station, or you like it as it is, just tweaking a little bit?
I think that it's probably a little more than tweaking, but basically the key will be to localize and to be involved in the community and to become an icon in the community. And that requires, a lot of involvement in the community. Today I met with people involved in the SOAR program out at Evergreen, the high school students that are
Sure.
involved in producing their TV show, and we're talking about doing a half hour on the radio Friday mornings from 11 to 11:30. And, it's just lots of different types of community programming, but that's what really works for a small market radio station. It really wouldn't work so well for KFRC.
No.
But in this community, it should be more than the voice. It's kind of, reflecting the community back so people can, get to know what's going on.
Well, one of the things that I've known over the years is that if anybody, any of the service groups or anybody who has some sort of an event that they want to talk about, it was always okay. Go on the radio, talk to Lars, or more recently, talk to Eve, and just have like that sort of a format, maybe kind of like this on the radio, talking about their event and things like that. And I think that really does tie the community to the station for sure.
Absolutely. And even it's fun just to have folks that have been here for a long time that are great storytellers to tell their stories. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here, and I really enjoy this kind of radio.
That's great. So, as far as you're going to be here for a while.
Well, that's the plan.
Okay.
We're not complete with the transfer, and that may take a few more months. I'm not sure. It's up to the FCC. But I plan to stay here. That's why I moved back really, and it's nice to be back in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm enjoying the rain, and I'm enjoying the Douglas fir and the rivers, and there's just a lot of things that I've missed.
So, are you an on-air presence?
Yes.
Okay.
Historically, I did news as well. I did own and manage stations, but most of my career I did news, and I did that in Sacramento. It was the top station in Sacramento, and I did that in San Francisco. And so that's really my background, which is a key element of community radio, really, is to, find out what's going on with city council. I went out, for instance, last Friday to Chemeketa College and talked with Senator Jeff Merkley.
Okay, yeah, I saw that.
Particularly about issues going on here, that impact this local area, which was about logging and that was fascinating. That town hall meeting. I mean, people should really appreciate the fact that our U.S. senators are coming out to talk with the people. That doesn't happen in many states.
No, I think they're really accessible people, and they really want to be connected and take that back to Washington, which, as you say, is pretty refreshing.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So your focus is, you sort of obviously cover the national news and that kind of thing, but go more in depth on the local stuff.
That's really the focus.
Yeah.
There's so many different sources for news.
course.
There's so many different sources for music. But I'd like to do a local music show. But for news, the focus really should be on local news because people aren't going to get that anyplace else.
No.
And that's the thing that's really changed about radio is that, there was a time when KYLC started back in 1949. I think it had different call letters then. But, it was really the only thing. But now you've got iPods and you've got computers, you've got, all kinds of
Well, you can get the news on your phone
That's right.
while you're sitting in the Starbucks line. I know
Absolutely.
because I do it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I have a 22-year-old daughter, and she's constantly teaching me all kinds of new things that she does with, the phone. I think to some extent the phone it's a misnomer. I mean, it's a computer that's in your hand, and it's just phenomenal what
It
they
is.
can do.
The only problem is that it's so little. After about 20 minutes on it, you feel like this. Oh, I can't see a thing.
Right. That, or I have a hard time without, I make typos while I'm trying to send people messages.
You see the text, it's like the little tiny numbers are so small.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. I remember when I was growing up, and every Sunday night I would be laying in my bed, and I would listen to, what was it, K101, okay, in the Bay Area, and they had like a Sunday night show. And it was, I don't know, just like a talk show or whatever. And then I think at like 9 o'clock they would broadcast the Reverend Cecil Williams from Glide Memorial Church. Mm-hmm. And that was probably my first exposure to anything like that. And really, that's what I think radio is so good at, is just, bringing the world or opening people to a new experience, whether you're, way out in the hills of Willamina or, right in downtown McMinnville. But you can be local, but they can also get a different kind of experience than they might be able to get, a lot of other places.
Absolutely. And Marshall McLuhan says it's a hot medium because it requires people to use their imagination. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people prefer TV. I remember when I went to see my grandmother and I said I wanted to watch The Lone Ranger, and she says, well, you can listen to it in the radio. And that was baffling that I had to imagine the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But the truth is it's good for people, young people particularly, to to have to use their imaginations.
I love radio. I think it's my favorite because of that. Because it's not just fed at you all the time. You actually get to think about it. It's almost like reading a book. You read a book and you have it all in your mind how it's going. Then you see the movie and you think, that's not what he looks like. Mm. No, he doesn't look like that at all.
Right.
So I think that's kind of an interesting thing.
It is. And it's interesting that it's one reason why books are often reviewed on the radio, mm-hmm. because similar people listen to talk radio and read books. And in both cases, you have to invoke your imagination.
Now, do you have any talk shows?
We are doing some. I'm planning to do more.
Are you?
But we're kind of phasing things in, and we've got some technical issues that we're addressing right now. But I think that's a critical element.
Well, it's fun to see what people like, what people respond to also. Try something, see how it goes, kind of test market it a bit and see if it gets a good response. And if they like it, do more. And if they don't, you can always switch it up and do something else. I mean, I think that's kind of the beauty of radio as well, is that maybe you have a little bit more flexibility.
It's true. And it's also, I think, the nature of small business, mm-hmm. That you have to try things and see how they work and
that's for sure.
Get some feedback. And sometimes people have wonderful suggestions, and we welcome those. But, it'll evolve.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I really want to thank you for being here today, and feel free to come back anytime and, keep us up to speed about what's going on. And in the meantime, we wish you a lot of success.
Well, thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.